this is part 2 of my presidential election series of these really amazingly important 2020 presidential elections in the United States. Yesterday I recorded the first part talking about the Mayan calendar and numerology. In this part I will talk about the just crazily powerful astrological alignments of these present days, how it really climaxes here. Actually, it's really the 2020 highest climax, I would say, in energy and change in setting the foundations, as we will see in a minute. And my upcoming third part, which I will hopefully publish late tonight, will be these elections, the alignments, astrological, seen through the eyes of the nations, through the American nations' perspective. And the American nation is really well represented by the July 4, 1776 chart, when that basic alliance was formed, when it was given birth, when that new constitution, which is really the most amazing part of American history, is its constitution, its freedom loving and giving dignity and sovereignty to each being. That is the seed of where we're going globally, collectively. That was laid, that cornerstone, in 1776. So in this present video, I'm talking about not just hexagram 61, which is a crucial part of this year's astrological expressions, and I just show you one quick diagram. This is the human design, and what you see here are the different hexagrams as represented in the energetic body graph. Here are the planets, and this is calculated for the 3rd of November, 17 hours Greenwich Mean Time, which is 12 noon in Washington DC, so midday of the elections. 61, that's where this hexagram resides, up in the center column between the 7th chakra and the 6th chakra. So this is all about a direct connection to higher wisdom, and this channel has been open for an extraordinary 7 months in total, when it finally will close somewhere between May and December 2020. And I spoke about that earlier. This is what I would call the activation of the collective pineal gland. So this is happening in the 7-month period, and sure enough, we got so much support from planetary energies to nudge us into that direction. It started off with Saturn and Pluto's conjunction in hexagram 61 in January, and since then hexagram 61 has been very populated, very actively energized. So it happens that, or it happened at this point, I should say, that just 3-4 days ago, Jupiter, having already visited this part of the zodiac earlier this year, Jupiter had retreated and then gone back to somewhere around 17 degrees Capricorn. And just in the last weeks and months has edged up again toward that 20 degrees 45 mark of Capricorn, which is the beginning of the 61 hexagrams energy. So Jupiter entered 61, joining Pluto again, and also Saturn. They were all in here, or are all in here now for the next while again. Joined more on hexagram 61 in a minute. Just want to first show you quickly the lineup of alignments which we are seeing in these few days, in that little window between October 29 and the 4th of November. And so this is that last Thursday. Then full moon on Saturday. Full moon exactly conjunct Uranus, 8:38 was the moon's position when it was very full. 8:41 retrograding means the two bodies move toward each other, which is the strongest way of interaction. It shows that something is still ahead. The big clash impact is still ahead in some ways. So this was the full moon of the sun in Scorpio. I could say lots and lots more about this chart. I will refrain from doing that. Maybe just one thing. This is cast for Washington, D.C., the full moon chart. And here we have Chiron exactly at the 4th house cusp. Venus in Zenith together with Maki Maki, which is a creation force named after the Easter Island deity who is forming material universes. So it's a really down-to-earth creative process which Maki Maki is channeling, you could say. So on top of that Venus Chiron opposition, which in itself I would say is that healing which is just starting to set in on a much bigger level. Venus in its own sign in Libra in honor. This is very nice overall. I mean, just maybe I should throw this in at this point. In 2016 I wrote a long article kind of giving a preview of what I perceive as manifesting over the next whatever 12 years, 10 years, whatever, starting 2016 into 2026 roughly. And many of these things have materialized as which I then kind of talked about. Many are still to come. So at that time, that was in October 2016, I said that it would be a rough ride short after the elections, and I was predicting Donald Trump's victory at that time. I was very sure of that. My research had shown multiple alignments and synchronicities which couldn't be overlooked. Anyway, the long and short, I predicted there would be quite a turmoil in the United States, and that is what happened. This time is different. Many people expect turmoil. There won't be turmoil. I promise you that. From what I can see, it will just be, the left will be flabbergasted. Maybe that's the best way to say. The wind will just die down on their side. They won't have, the sails will fall flat. It will be just shock, maybe is the best word to use. And Mars is in that hexagram, which is named shock and thunder between 1507-30 in Aries to 2045. That is the section. and maybe I should say in that moment, the exact overlay, which is based on the Human Design's transmissions, which came to us in 1987, which is a powerful system in itself. But this information, the overlay of the 64 hexagram with the zodiac, that is probably its most greatest potential, because this can be used in astrology in so many ways. So Mars is in hexagram 51, shock thunder, between October 14 and December 14, and will turn direct on November the 13th. Has been going between Earth has been going between Sun and Mars. That's why Mars has been so bright. That's always the time, every 2 years that happens approximately. That's when Mars is very bright in the sky. So, right, this chart alone, this full moon chart, really speaks volumes. With Venus up high, this already says, yes, there will be a healing happening. People are coming together, realizing they have been really duped and cheated and deceived in massive ways. It is really a virus of truth which is out there, which can't be stopped. That's the real pandemic which is happening in 2020, the truth pandemic. Anyway, so this is Saturday, October the 31st, full moon. And then, just hours later, we have a heliocentric Mars-Saturn square. Now let's go to the heliocentric chart, which I calculated for Greenwich. It's a global chart. So here you have Mars, 146 Taurus, and Saturn 146 Aquarius, and just hours prior there was also a exact Mars-Jupiter square heliocentrically. So these are enormously important moments in two planets' mutual cycle when they form the first square. So Mars is just fully activating this Jupiter-Saturn energy just couple days prior to the exact Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, which I just give you here the quick preview. That's the same. Okay, this is the heliocentric chart for Washington. So here you again have Jupiter and Saturn now exactly at the same degree. This is actually, as we record this exact, I'm recording this here, that would be just about 6 minutes prior to the exact moment. So I'm riding this wave right now. This renewal, which is just becoming visible to all and everyone. It is one of the most wonderful moments in human history. We are just watching, participating, carrying forward, making sure it manifests in all its brilliance and amazing multitude. Okay, Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. Just a few hours after a Gemini moon. Yes, very early this morning, November the 2nd, the moon entered Gemini, joining the North Node, which is our present time's collective evolutionary direction, is Gemini. That's where the moon rises out of the Sun-Earth plane every 4 weeks, cutting through in an upward motion the meeting point of solar and lunar energies. The nodes are very powerful, very important in every person's chart, and they always come in pairs. So we have the South Node, the setting node, which represents the assets. It's kind of the soil where we grow out of, and the North Node is the direction we're meant to evolve toward. It's like a tree, the roots and the crown. So in a nutshell, this Gemini energy is to bring down higher truths and insights and translate them into everyday language, give everyone access to that information in their own way so they can understand it. Gemini is a brilliant sign in that sense of being able to explain, and it's Mercury's sign after all. Now, I mean, it's really an amazing story here, and I'm really just scratching the surface, to be honest. So the moon now in Gemini, and will be for the next 2.5 days, so that will last way past the election day. And I'm expecting a very clear result, and very quick. I'm expecting it, as every year, around 9-10 latest local time in Washington DC, to be very clear that yes, there was an avalanche, a landslide, a unbelievable majority of American people supporting Donald J. Trump on his task to bring back justice and sovereignty and freedom and much, much more. This is just the beginning. Yep, the best is yet to come. So, yeah, okay. Gemini ingress of the moon, and this chart again cast for Washington DC. Interesting, that axis which is rising in Washington for the whole nation, with the initiation of this lunar energy. That is the American nation's axis of Juno and Chiron. More on that in my third part, which I will hopefully have out before midnight of the 3rd, where I speak about the particular way the American nation is experiencing all these amazing energies. So, Gemini new moon, Gemini moon, right? No more so new. Actually, it's still very full. So, still very much in this release phase of this setting free all these pent up energies, giving them full expression. That's that time of the lunar cycle, the gibbous moon, I guess it's called. So, okay, so now we go into the next stage, and Mercury turning direct, right? Okay, Mercury has gone backwards for the last 3 weeks. And I had written at the time, this will be probably the most unusual and wild Mercury retrograde phase we have seen in a long time. It sure was so, with all the revelations and shocks and sidekicks that we have seen coming out of the closet. So this 3-week period comes to a close on election day, right midday at 10 minutes or 9 minutes before 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Right in the center of the elections. What is that about? Changing the whole script over again, moving it in a new direction. And again, much could be said about this chart. Mercury here, pretty narrowly aligned with Haumea. Haumea, an other creation force, a planet which was discovered not too long ago, maybe 15 years ago or so, a planetoid, I should say, to be clear. It's a smaller one, however, still probably around 1,000-kilometer diameter, so nothing to be ignored for sure. This in itself I could talk about for a long time. It just shows there's some new inspiration coming into the field of mind. We already have started thinking in new ways, seeing things from a different angle. So this is just the start of a new 4-month cycle, and again I will get deeper into this in my third part of the story here, of that epic story leading into these elections. This is the same moment for Greenwich. Just want to mention here, Moon and North Node rising. The Moon in a chart like that is standing, representing the people. And the Moon right at the ascendant being the most important part in any astrological chart. It is where we experience the sky growing out of the earth. That's where the sun rises, where all planets are rising, the Moon. It is the focal point when we look at the relationship between earth and the sky. So when the Moon is here, just already its light is already visible, slightly reflecting. It's just about to come up. So this is really symbolic. This shows that in these 4 months, yes, people will come back to power. It's a true grassroots movement, which is coming out of the closet, so to speak. It was kind of subdued for that whole time when it was incubating in these past 4 years, when it was nurtured. And now it's come to some sort of ripeness, readiness to be exposed to the open, so everyone would be able to see, even those who have been tricked to still believe the wrong storyline. Okay, now this is just a few hours later. You see, this is Mercury. Okay, let me go to the Washington chart so we have the same time frame. On election day, few minutes before 1 p.m., Mercury changes direction back to direct motion. And not even 3 hours later or so, Saturn makes another big move. Saturn has been in hexagram 61 together with Pluto, as I mentioned earlier, pretty much for the whole year. For the few months when it was cutting a bit farther into the zodiac, it was already in hexagram 61, has returned into hexagram 60 now. Sorry, I'm mixing up numbers here. It is interesting that hexagram 61 is inner truth, which is starting 2045 to 26, 22, 30. And then just consequent, next one is 60, which is limitation. We speak about that in a moment. That's very important. So hexagram 60, limitation from 26, 22, 30 Capricorn into 2 degrees Aquarius. That's where Jupiter and Saturn are planting roots, foundations for these coming 2 decades in limitation. Maybe I should share my 2 cents on that here quickly, as it can be seen as a riddle. What I'm expecting, and what's most likely to happen, many pieces of information point in the right direction, in that same direction, I should say, is that we are just as the curtains will be pulled open, so many things, so many storylines, so many amazing insights will just flood in on us all at once. So there needs to be some sort of a structural force so we don't go crazy. And here is where limitation comes in. Limitation means there has to be a structure. One by one of these things have to be allowed in. We have to be very conscious that we're not getting overwhelmed. That's kind of the basic tenor of the coming 2 decades into 2040. That's how long a Jupiter-Saturn cycle lasts. And Jupiter and Saturn are the 2 largest planets of our solar system. Just want to really re-emphasize that. This is the most important planetary cycle period in our solar system. Jupiter and Saturn stand for societal shifts and changes. It is a socio-economic evolution we see mirrored in that cycle. And I again could go out here on a limb. I won't. Just say that much for now. So Jupiter and Saturn are right now, as we speak, having their renewal of energy. It's not yet fully manifest on planet Earth. Here it will take another, 7-8 weeks for the 2 planets to appear in the same spot in the sky, which will be on winter solstice, December 21st, 2020. So we're kind of in this middle ground now. This is a very interesting phase. Energetically, already we're in the new, and the manifestation plane is lagging a bit behind, so it takes for these 6 to 8 weeks for all this to catch up with one another. So it's not just just the energetic plane. I guess it's really the main plane, and the rest will follow. That's usually how it goes. First things have to be settled on the intentional pre-manifest plane, and then the next step to kind of phase them down into physical density. That's a logical, a natural rhythm, a natural sequence, I should say, right? That's the word I was kind of looking for. So Saturn changing into hexagram 60. Now this is serious business. I guess that's the moment around 4 p.m. Washington time when it really kicks in, when all these dark state players realize they really lose the game. It's over. Because that's what Saturn in hexagram 60 also means. Saturn is about limitation, and in that sense, hexagram 60 is a perfect place for Saturn to be. It was interesting that Saturn was in that hexagram earlier this year during the kind of most precarious part of that lockdown and everybody being restricted in their movements and everything. I talked about that earlier. It was quite an amazing synchronicity there too. So anyway, this is just one way Saturn will express or has expressed in that energy. I think this time it will express in a different way. We're now moving towards really arresting those who have long been awaiting for it. I guess they were kind of getting giddy. When is it finally happening? When will they do their final moves? So it's kind of probably was very nerve-wracking for many of these players. I mean, there's so much strategy behind all what we see happening. That's why over and again military intelligence tells us to know that everything moves according to plan. trust the plan. Anyway, so Saturn changing into hexagram 60 around 4 p.m. on election day, and then 18 minutes before 10 p.m. on election night, the moon and the north node have a perfect alignment. Okay, now we are really all in line. This is the moment when probably proclamation will be made, when all the electoral votes are in, or maybe not all of them yet, but the majority, when it's clear, yes, that's when everybody will know. And now we are set on to a new direction. Interesting that this is Donald Trump's sun sign, very close. His sun is around 23 degrees, and he has a whole series of planets here in this area. Uranus, one of them, his north node, his natal north node, very close to that same place. The lunar nodes take about 18 point some years to move once around the zodiac, and they go in backward motion. So this is President Trump's fourth nodal return, and again the timing is immaculate. It's just unbelievable, the amazing synchronicity we see also on that level, that this is his most empowering sign, Gemini. That's his talent of communicating, of sharing what he knows and doing all the right moves, having the whole organization in place to oversee what's going on. A very strong Mercury being the planet of communication, and in many ways is the energy which is making us different from the inanimate natural world and also animals who live in the now. Mercury has that ability to compare and to plan, to project, to realize that's where we're coming from, and then project it into the future. It is that ability of mind which really brings time into reality at first. I mean, for example, an animal lives in the same dimensions we do, but is really in the now. With pets, it can get a little bit mixed up there, because that's part of the evolutionary process a pet goes through on its path to understand that new dimension. Just as a side note here. So, okay, then on November the 4th, I mentioned that yesterday in my first part, this will be the day of clarity. It is a 1 day after the election day, who has been a 9 day. So this is a new start. November the 1st, 2020 will be a big new start. And to crown the whole thing, midday, November the 4th, also Pallas will join the club in hexagram 61, inner truth. And I just want to finish on that note once more, go to hexagram 61 and read you here what this website, which I found, sums it up really nicely. Centering in truth. Centering in truth involves becoming conscious of the relationship between your heart and the circumstances of your life. This requires connecting with the fundamental wisdom that is within you, within other people, and within all of nature. Truth becomes power when you let go of prejudice and make yourself receptive to the world as it really is. As it really is. We're cutting through deceptions here, big time. This kind of inner transformation can produce a remarkably influential person, but it is difficult to achieve in the distancing modern world of false messages and fake friendships. It is achieved only by those who cultivate genuine openness to the way things are and possess a willingness to see into the heart of things rather than merely looking at appearances. Well, thank you so much for joining here and listening, and be in the wait for my third part. Yes, exciting times, and love you all. Thank you for listening, and if you liked it, show it and subscribe and whatever. You know what to do. Thank you.